I was a member of the church from January 1997 to December 15, 2016. A lot of verbal abuse via preaching. You were made to feel less than you are as a person. We were, as women, because I got married in the church, and as women, we were supposed to give, when we worked, we had to give our husband all of our money, because he said that women had to covetous. So we had to give the husband all of our money. So we, as a wife, you had absolutely no say in the finances. We were not allowed to take contraceptives. So some people had kids that they really didn't want because they were not allowed to take contraceptives. You were, as a wife, being in there, it was basically like almost like slavery, because I had a job. I worked at Straffi's actually, and like the husbands were not, it's like they were superior then. Like they're the head of the home, they're superior, and you have to submit to you. Like you got to submit to your husband. One of the things that happened there during my time was there was a husband and wife in there. The husband joined the church, and he was apparently HIV positive, and they claimed that he was healed. He got married to a woman in there. The woman was from Bolands, and they had 2 kids, 2 daughters. And the husband eventually died. And then when the wife took in sick, there was one Sunday she was left home alone with her underage. The child was under 12 years old at the time, with her mother at home. And she died that Sunday. And so a bunch of us from the church, we went up there, and the pastor sent all of us away. And he stayed there with the dead body because he said he was going to pray for her to raise her from the dead. And he sent all of us away. We don't know. I do not know what actually happened whilst we were gone. But then when we came back, well, obviously she was still dead. We were not allowed to go to the doctor or to take medication. If you were sick and you went to the doctor and they found out, or you were taking medication and they found out, you were publicly humiliated in the form of rebuke. It was a lot of asking for money. Like there was so many different contributions that you had to give to, and then there were times when, you know, as a member, it was really, you really did not have it because you have your bills to pay, and you were told that you don't have faith. You have to give, and that's why you'll suffer in lack, is because you don't give. There was one time, the pastor's wife, we were at a women's fellowship, and she said to the women that we should not buy real gold jewelry to wear because it's too expensive. We should rather give the money to the church and buy the plated gold, with like the fake gold. And after she said that, she traveled to Ghana and she brought back a bunch of plated gold jewelry. I'm the one who even sold them to her. And she sold them quite pricey because I made over $8,000 for her selling that. And they were fake gold jewelry too. The children, he would talk to the parents about, like, if the children had to go to college, he would discourage the kids, discourage the parents of sending the children to college, because he said that education cannot take you to heaven. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of kids did not go to college. And those who did go, they just went to Antigua State College. It was in latter years that some of the children demanded that they go to college, and so, you know, some of the parents allowed them. I looked at the interview that he did, and there was a lot of lies that he spoke concerning the interview, because I worked at Straffi's funeral home. The problem was that she employed, majority of her employers were people from the church. She did not have a qualified accountant. The person who did the accounting for the Travis Funeral Home was going to the church, and she didn't. She's not an accountant by profession. And what happened was, he would make a lot of demands, financial demands on Elizabeth. A lot of the members of the church borrowed money from Elizabeth that they never paid back. In that particular interview, he also made mention that Elizabeth made some investments in Guyana in timber and gold that she never saw the returns. The reason she never saw the returns was it was one of the church members' family who was dealing with it for her, and they stole the money. So at the end of the day, it's still the church who took so much from her, including him and his wife. He was very controlling. It's like whatever you had, if you wanted to buy a house, if you wanted to buy a vehicle, if you wanted to send money to your parents who live abroad, if you wanted to help somebody, you had to go to him. And he said that you cannot help your parents or your family members who are not part of the church, because they are devils, and so you should not speak to them. And that is the reason why so many people in the church do not have good relationship with their family members who are not part of the church. He would come to church sometimes to preach, and the entire service he would just be rebuking. Some of the things that he said would be extremely insulting. I remember one time he said that because we don't have faith, that cockroaches playing cricket in our cupboards, we don't have any food. And the husbands in the church did the same thing. It's almost like the tradition in Africa where they disrespect their wives. Anyway, eventually, he told all the married men in the church that it's okay for them to have other women with their wives, and that the wife cannot say anything. She has to accept it. And that is one of the reasons, that is a major reason why I left. And I traveled. He started a church in Guyana. And my husband and I and our children, my 4 kids, are all Antiguans. We went to Guyana to start the church. So I traveled in 2016 because I was about to start a business. So I got a loan and I traveled so I could go back, purchase the stuff. And I did not tell him that I was traveling. And he sent me a message. We were living on the church property. And he sent me a message and said that I could not come back to live on the church property. Mind you, we left Antigua, gave up the house we were living in, went to Guyana. I have absolutely no family from Guyana, not Guyanese. And he sent me that message. And so I was upset. So I responded. And I really did not respond nicely because I was upset, because I felt like I don't have to tell you that I am traveling. That doesn't make any sense. If I'm going to travel, like, that's between myself and my family. I left, and because he said I could not come back to live on the church property, so I had to go and live with somebody that I had just met, a friend. I lived with the lady for a while, and for like 8 weeks, and then migrated again. But my kids are still in Guyana. But what I tell you is that there are a lot of people who were ill, who, had they been given medical attention, they might have survived. There's a young man who died in 2015, I think he died, and he was diabetic. He fell ill during a church service, a Friday night, and instead of taking him to the hospital, they took him home, and he died that Saturday. And when the autopsy was done, it was because his blood sugar was sky high. And he was also born with a hole in his heart. But then because the people in the church was told that you shouldn't go to doctors because they don't have wisdom. So he wasn't taking any medication. He wasn't seeking medical attention. And so when he fell ill, instead of taking him to the hospital, they took him home. There was another young lady who was pregnant, and she had eclampsia, because she caught a seizure a night at church, and she wasn't taken to the hospital again, and actually lost that baby, and she ended up in the ICU. There are so many other people who suffered verbal abuse. Parents treated their kids bad, because if the children would come to church and they're sleepy, parents would be pinching them. They would not give them any food as a form of punishment for sleeping in church. Like I said, we were sent to Guyana. So my husband, which is my 4 kids' father, he is the pastor of the branch in Guyana. We're no longer together, but before I left, he was sleeping with the young women in the church. And when I say young, 20s, because he's 40, 20s. There's 2 sisters. They're biological sisters, same mother, same father. They're sleeping with the eldest and the oldest, and then there are 2 others that he was sleeping with. My husband, he is the junior pastor. He's the pastor for the branch in Guyana, because the church has a branch in Guyana. So he's the pastor for the branch in Guyana. So we were down there, and he was sleeping with the women in the church. But then, it's part of the church, so that's why I brought it up. And so we have a daughter who is now 20 years old. She was 18 when she stopped going to the church. And because she wasn't going to the church, I could send you photos of what he did. He put padlocks. He has 4 kids in the house. And he chained all the cupboard doors with chains and padlock, that the kids could not even use a pot to cook food if they wanted to make something to eat. He put a horse and stable on the refrigerator, and then he put a padlock on the refrigerator so they can't get inside the fridge either. He took the mattress off the bed, so my daughter was sleeping on the board, and then she had to use the cushions for the chair of the couch as a mattress for her to sleep on. And I have the photos of that, because she took the photos and she sent them to me. So, these are some of the things that, as a pastor, that was going on. I remember when I called Nana. I called him. I said, Nana, this is what Timothy is doing. He's sleeping with the women in the church, and they come into church and disrespecting me. So I said to him, Nana, the way I'm feeling, I'm going to catch a charge. I said, not because I'm going to fight for any man, but I will not be disrespected. I said to him, call him. I said, Timothy told me that you said that the married men can have women with their wives, and the wives cannot say anything. When I said, Nana, that's not right. When I asked him, he told me point blank, yes, as long as he has the money, he could do it. I said, but this is not our culture in the Caribbean. People do it, yes, but this is not our culture in the Caribbean. And he was like, I said, yes, we are all black people, but we have our own culture in the Caribbean. So what he was doing is implementing the African culture. They no longer even pray to God. They don't pray, Heavenly Father, guide me throughout my day in the name of Jesus. They don't do that. You cannot call the name of God